Today, we're diving into a story that might just flip a big chunk of what you learned in history class completely upside down. We're about to uncover a lost civilization, one so huge, so incredibly advanced, and so fundamentally different that it challenges everything we think we know about how societies are supposed to work. And let's just jump right in with this bombshell from Dr. Anth Kathleen Fuller. I mean, we're all taught that, right? Ancient Athens, the cradle of democracy, the blueprint for everything that came after. But what if that story is missing its first and honestly, its most fascinating chapter? So yeah, we're going to put that classic textbook fact under a serious microscope. Because to really get a handle on the civilization we're talking about today, we first have to tear down the idea of the one we think we know. Okay, so look at this. On the left, you've got Athens, about 2,500 years ago. Their democracy was, well, pretty exclusive. It was really just for a handful of guys who owned property. Most people, no say at all. Now look to the right, the Indus Valley, a full 2,500 years earlier. The evidence here points to something totally different, a society built on consensus for pretty much everyone. This wasn't democracy for the few, it was a way of life for the many. So let's properly introduce this amazing contender for the world's first large-scale egalitarian society, the Indus Valley Civilization, or the IVC for short. And to give you a sense of just how big this was, we always hear about ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, right? They're the heavyweights. Well, look at this chart. The IVC was geographically bigger than both of them, combined. This was no small-time settlement. We're talking about an enormous civilization that covered a huge piece of South Asia. And it wasn't just empty land. We're talking about a population of over 5 million people at its peak. That's more than its famous rivals. So yeah, this wasn't just some regional player, this was a true superpower of the ancient world. And this wasn't some flash in the pan either. Their roots go back 10,000 years, and their great cities thrived for an incredible 700-year stretch starting around 2600 BCE. They were stable, they were organized, and they were here for a long time. So here's the thing. They were huge, they were ancient, and they were incredibly advanced. But how did they run the show? How do you organize 5 million people? Well, this is where the story gets really, really strange, because it seems they broke all the rules of what an ancient civilization is supposed to look like. Okay, let's play detective for a second. When you think of a great ancient civilization, you think of kings, pharaohs, emperors, right? So where are the palaces? Where are the giant treasure-filled royal tombs? The answer is they're not there. Archaeologists have searched, and there is just no evidence of a ruling class. No palaces, no royal graves. Everyone was buried simply, and houses across their cities were all about the same size. Think about that. It suggests a society with an incredible lack of wealth inequality. All right, fine, no kings. But surely there must have been a powerful class of priests, right? Every other ancient civilization had these massive temples to their gods, which also showed off the power of the priesthood. So, where are the IVC's temples? Again, nowhere. There's no sign of a big, organized religion. The largest public building they've ever found is something called the Great Bath, which was probably, a giant public swimming pool. Their focus was on community and cleanliness, not on building giant monuments to gods or priests. Okay, so no kings, no high priests. What about generals? How did they protect a civilization of 5 million people? Where are the armies, the weapons, the giant defensive walls? And this might be the most mind-blowing part of the whole story. There is zero evidence of a military or of warfare at all. It seems this entire massive civilization was held together not by force, but by peace and trade. It was a society built around commerce and making beautiful things. Now, don't mistake peaceful for primitive. Not at all. These folks were master engineers. They built the world's first planned cities on a grid. Their houses had indoor plumbing, toilets, and baths that connected to complex, covered sewer systems. And their trade network was just staggering. It went from Mesopotamia all the way to Australia, where they might have even introduced the dingo. So you have to ask yourself, why? Why were they so radically different from everyone else? Well, Dr. Anth has this fascinating theory that it all comes down to the climate and the legacy of their ancestors. Think of it this way.
In places like Mesopotamia and Egypt, the climate got harsh really fast, resources dried up, agriculture was basically born out of desperation, and that created a mindset of control over land, control over water, control over people. It's the perfect recipe for kings and armies. But in the Indus Valley, the climate change was gentle. The rivers created this incredibly lush, fertile land. They didn't have to fight for survival. They could just ease into farming.
And because they didn't have that desperate struggle, they were able to hold on to what Dr. Ants calls the forager mindset. This is the worldview of their hunter-gatherer ancestors, and it's built on things like equality, making decisions together, and even gender equity. And here's the amazing part. Instead of ditching those values as they grew, the Indus Valley civilization scaled them up. They built a massive urban society on cooperation, not control.
But if this peaceful, advanced civilization was so successful, where did it go? Well, its collapse is a pretty sobering lesson in how even the smartest societies can be incredibly vulnerable.
It wasn't just one thing. It was a devastating domino effect. First, earthquakes changed the course of rivers and, crucially, shattered their amazing sewer systems. That led to widespread disease. Then, the climate shifted again. The monsoons became unreliable, and famines set in. People started fleeing the disaster zones, overwhelming other cities, until the entire interconnected system just broke down, and the great cities were left to crumble.
But here's the thing. Their collapse doesn't erase their existence. For over 700 years, they were living proof of another way. And that's the key takeaway here. The IVC proves that it is absolutely possible to build a huge, complex, wealthy society on principles of peace and equality. This isn't some utopian fantasy. It's history. They actually did it. And that leaves us with a really profound question, doesn't it? This lost civilization gives us a blueprint for a totally different way to live together on a massive scale. They showed us what was possible 5,000 years ago. So the real question for us is, what are we going to choose to make possible right now?